Gabriel, if you are there, I can't see or hear you, just so you know. Perfect, I can see you there also.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the open session of council for May 31st, 2021. With that, I'll pass it over to the clerk to go through the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional land of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we, as beneficiaries of the treaty, must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, I pass it back to you.
Prior to getting started, I'd like to ask that everyone join us in a moment of silence to honor the 250 Indigenous children from British Columbia whose remains were found in a mass grave. We share in the sorrow of this grim discovery. This is such a heartbreaking tragedy. Please remember all those lives lost and their families during such a difficult time. Throughout the municipality, we will fly over 40 flags at half-mast for 215 hours to represent each precious life lost. Flags will remain lowered until Wednesday, June 9th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the approval of the supplementary agenda, we don't have any additional items. However, I do want to clarify that item 15A has been moved to 18C now. It was under the incorrect department and we've moved it appropriately. As for the disclosure of pecuniary interest, we have one, Councillor Stallman, with regards to 15C, the application for exemption of part lot control, Maple City Homes Limited, for 38, 42, 46, and 50, community of Chatham. Next, we'll go to the deputations. Council, this evening we have 14 deputations and the clerk's office will read them now. The first group of deputations are with regards to 19B, and 19B is the amendments to the Long Grass and Weeds Bylaw 56-2020. The first one is from Kayla Marie Earle, and it goes as follows. The naturalization of private lawns and yards in Chatham-Kent, Bylaw 56-2020. Buzha, Mr. Mayor and councillors of Chatham-Kent. My name is Kayla Marie Earle. I am 29 years old, Anishinaabe Cree from Waikwikun, unceded territory, and Arrow Land First Nation. I am also a registered engineer in training and a professional advisor on matters of energy, reconciliation, health, and wellness of Indigenous communities, and the inclusion of Indigenous people in business. I have been living in Chatham for a full year now and have fallen in love with the community and the people. I have decided to make this region my home. I am writing to tell you a story. It is of Anishinaabe culture teaching. It is adapted from a story that was written by a man named Boom Kizik from Serpent River First Nation. It is well known among Anishinaabe people that natural balance between man and animal is needed for all creation to survive. At the beginning of time, the spirits requested this balance and made it into natural law. There have been many times over time where this balance has been tested and broken, going against natural laws set by the spirits. And one of those times, Anishinaabe decided to be wasteful and unkind to the land and animals. They overharvested and allowed their actions to be led by greed, walking over the food of the animals and scattering the bones of the animals everywhere, covering pathways and trails, and dirtying the waters of the animals and Anishinaabe shared. And instead of holding counsel with the animals when the animal relations sent a bear to talk to them, and Anishinaabe killed the bear. The animals were furious. They were trying to solve the problem with Anishinaabe. So they held a council meeting. At the council, the chief of the animals, a great white bear, said, "We must kill the two-legged or there will be no more four-legged left." So the animals all got together and came up in different ways to kill the Anishinaabe and decided on cursing them with the strongest medicine they had. The deer brought a curse that would cripple the two-legged. The wolf brought a curse that would cause cramping and nausea. The owl brought a curse of the brain that would drop the two-legged to the ground and killed them instantly. The bat brought a sickness to the lungs that would make it so that Anishinaabe couldn't breathe. Many other animals brought many other curses. The attack of the two-legged worked and they began to perish and suffer at an amazing rate. No one was immune to the war that the animals waged against them. The animals agreed amongst them that they would wipe the two-legged off the earth completely for the absolute disrespect of all the creation. All except for the chipmunk. The chipmunk decided to help the Anishinaabe try to figure out where the sickness was coming from and how to stop it. So he went on warrior mission to tell the Anishinaabe about everything that happened. The Anishinaabe learned that their wicked ways had caused the sickness and agreed to be good-hearted people again, like their grandparents were. So they gave tobacco to the plants and asked them to provide cures for the sickness that was spread upon earth. The plants agreed because they wanted the war to stop and because they have compassion that it is unmatched in the world. For every sickness, every curse, there was a cure from the plants. Life was restored for the people. The animals were so angry with the chipmunks for telling Anishinaabe that they chased Chipmunk under some brush and scratched his back. That is how the chipmunk got those stripes. The plants told the Anishinaabe that in order to prevent a curse from happening again, they must offer tobacco every time they killed an animal, to never waste the animal and respect its land and water and land, and to thank the animal for giving its life to the Anishinaabe. To me, this story teaches us many things. In this case, it is important, and the most important are clear. One, that even the smallest creatures have the power to change the entire system, further telling us that everyone has an important role to play in any movement. Two, the restoration of balance with the land is critical to the wellness and survival of people, a telling teaching in the face of climate change. Three, that everything in creation has agency, that we have the responsibility to understand and respect in order to protect the wellness of our communities. In the year that I have lived in Chatham-Kent, I've learned that the fabric of this community is very much composed of energy, agriculture, and local business. These three pillars are the foundation of who we are as a community of CK. To me, this makes clear that the strength of Chatham-Kent is found in our understanding of value and our lands and resources. Reconnecting to our lands in a way that strengthens our already existing relationship to the land, especially in the face of climate change, is an opportunity for Chatham-Kent to not only lead in this space as a municipality, but also build our existing strengths in an agriculture and energy community. There are a number of benefits associated with the protection and further development of naturalized green spaces, including, but not limited to, health and wellness benefits to communities. Green spaces are known for interesting impact to health, including lowered blood pressure. Increased biodiversity acts as a highly effective controller for tick infestation, no more ticks, and support for the pollinators and other important members of the ecosystem. Increased carbon sinks to help mitigate climate change and improve air quality. Naturalization activities attract tourism, providing communities with revenue boosters for local businesses. Opportunities for low-cost community engagement for the development of naturalization projects, especially as COVID-19 eases restrictions. And the natural beautification of Chatham-Kent attracts overall community growth and attraction of top talent. Like the chipmunk, I call on you to challenge existing systems around naturalization and provide people with the opportunity to make our community healthier, safer, and more naturalized place to live and play. Doing this will build on the already existing strength of who we are as Chatham-Kent residents, farmers, energy workers, small businesses, and those who believe in the health and wellness of our community as a broader whole. Chi Ming Wich for our consideration, and I look forward to your decision this week. Kayla Marie Earl.
The next deputation is from Lorraine Johnson, and it's on item 19B. I'm writing to you with regards to revisions to the long grass and weeds bylaw. First, I would like to offer my congratulations to Council for taking this visionary step in support of citizens' efforts to naturalize their properties and for attempting to remove barriers that inhibit environmental stewardship on private property. The scientific literature on the positive environmental value of naturalization is clear. The more support and encouragement for naturalization, the better. To put my comments in context, I'm the author of 5 books on naturalization and gardening with native plants: The Ontario Naturalized Gardener, The Complete Guide to Using Native Plants, Grow Wild, Native Plants Gardening in Canada and the Northern US, 100 Easy to Grow Native Plants for Canadian Gardens, Tending the Earth, A Gardener's Manifesto, A Flower Patch for the Rusty Patched Bumblebee, Creating habitat gardens for native pollinators. I'm the editor of the essay collection, The Natural Treasures of Carolinian Canada, a book I instigated out of a deep love for this region. I've been doing public education on the value of naturalization for more than 25 years. I'm the former president of the North American Native Plant Society and am involved in many volunteer and community projects to create natural habitats, particularly for pollinators. I was on the City of Toronto's Expert Advisory Committee on developing Toronto's pollinator protection strategy. Citizens' constitutional right to native gardens has been upheld in 2 court cases, Bell versus Toronto, 1996, and Counter versus Toronto, 2002. The courts have ruled that this right can be limited for legitimate health and safety reasons, but not for aesthetic purposes alone. 2 quotes from Justice Fargrave in the Bell v. Toronto 1996 case. The decision was very clear. Even if a preference for the typical suburban lawn remains prevalent, and I'm sure it does, I think we have all become accustomed to accepting that not everyone shares the same tastes and that different practices are no less valid or tolerable simply because they deviate from the norm. While the bylaw may have been passed for a legitimate purpose, it should be remembered that Miss Bell's garden was found to have excessive growth of weeds and grass, not because there was any evidence of health concern or fire hazard or nuisance or harm, simply because of its appearance. I think it's apparent that one of the purposes of the bylaw, indeed its primary purpose, is to impose on all property owners the conventional landscaping practices considered by most people to be desirable, and that one of its efforts is to prevent naturalized gardens which reflect other less conventional values. The bylaw has a direct effect on appellants' freedom of expression and, in my view, clearly violates 2B of the Charter. I note that although the amendments to the bylaw before you allow for naturalization in side yard and backyards, they disallow naturalization in the front yard except within flower bed areas abutting the house. This is an aesthetics-based limitation to a constitutionally protected right, and I would suggest that, if challenged, the revised bylaw would not stand up in court for all the reasons itemized in the Bell decision and the counter decision. There is no legitimate health or safety consideration to justify prohibiting or narrowly prescribing front yard naturalization, a constitutionally protected right. The limitation you're proposing is based on aesthetics, which the court has already dismissed. Aside from the bylaw's legality or illegality, it is something more important, in my opinion. The proposed bylaw works against and counteracts Council's stated and immensely valuable goal of supporting and encouraging naturalization. The proposed bylaw, if passed, would send the discouraging and negative message that naturalization is something to hide rather than celebrate and encourage. Necessary and positive environmental change is going to happen if we order it to be hidden in the backyard. I encourage you to allow front yard naturalization beyond the flower bed area directly abutting the building, and instead allow naturalization in the front yard up to the buffer strip. Obviously, the buffer strip ensures that the front yard naturalization is maintained. My final comment relates to clause 9C of the proposed bylaw. The term infestation is extremely vague when it is used without being qualified. Infestation of what? The staff report means insect infestation, not only vague, but also, I would suggest, mistaken. Bees are insects and are crucial to agriculture. Is that an insect infestation to prevent and control? Obviously not. Butterflies are insects. Parasitic wasps that control agricultural pest species are insects, and they're of huge benefit to agriculture. Naturalization supports these crucial and beneficial insects. I would suggest that this clause be clarified to include only vermin and rodents. Many thanks for considering these comments. Respectfully, Lorraine Johnson.
This next deputation is on the same report and is written by Mike Smith. Mike is an employee with Chatham-Kent, but in this particular deputation, Mike is writing in his capacity as the founder of the community group Relief Chatham-Kent. Thank you for taking the time to consider the important changes to the lawn grass and weeds bylaw that are before you this evening. Traditional lawns require massive inputs of fresh water, synthetic fertilizers, and chemical herbicides to maintain. As a community that has experienced recent droughts and toxic algae blooms, we must take a leadership role in protecting our waterways. Modifying this bylaw to allow people to remove more lawn is a step in that direction. There is a perception that naturalizing a property means it will be neglected and become an eyesore. I can assure you from personal experience, this is not the case. Under this change bylaw, yards, parks, and gardens would still require regular maintenance. We are simply talking about replacing the types of plants we are maintaining. Rather than non-native turf with shallow roots that needs constant watering and fertilizing, we can make a switch to deep-rooted native plants that prevent erosion, reduce stormwater runoff, and attract beneficial pollinators. I have personally visited many stunning examples of native plant gardening right here in Chatham-Kent that enhance ecological value of the property they occupy, educate those who visit, and look beautiful. I also happily give tours for anyone who has their doubts. It is hard to shift our thinking and traditions. Manicured lawns to more naturalized greening. Some will see it as messy because it doesn't look the same. Some will see it as inconvenient because there may be bugs. They will complain to you and you will feel that frustration, maybe. But for a moment, imagine a world where we here in CK have a bit more of both and less of just one way of thinking. Imagine a world where CK is on the map and being recognized as a community who is willing to take bolder steps to action the green movement in the smallest of ways. Let's trust in the minds and efforts of those in the community that are passionate about restoring our environmental health. Let's put resources to a community education program to let this catch. Please take a bolder step and hold space for naturalization in more than backyards. Respectfully, Mike Smith.
The next deputation is with regards to report 19D, which is the notice of motion regarding dust suppressant level of service. This deputation is received from Gordon and Gail Ross, 23213 Mull Road. Thank you for the opportunity to express our concerns as the subject of dust control. We live on Mull Road between River Line and Northwood Line on the east side of the gravel road. Although this section of the road is about 1 mile, there is a tremendous amount of daily traffic. Our concerns are as follows. Safety. Passing vehicles raise clouds of dust that endanger walkers, cyclists, and drivers alike. Our grandson, who is a long-distance runner, now has to drive to the other areas for safety reasons. Health, sometimes as simple as breathing fresh air on a beautiful summer day, should be anyone's right. However, during the summer months, we have to wear a mask while cutting the grass. During the week, the grass has collected so much dust that as you walk through it in your shoes turn gray, and heaven forbid if a car goes by while you are on the lawnmower, you have to stop, hold your breath, and wait for the cloud to subside. We have read information suggesting that some of the material used to gravel the roads contains iron from previous railway gravel. After spending 6 months with pneumonia last summer, clean air is even more of a priority. Quality of life, sitting outside, entertaining, and hanging clothes on the line, having a clean environment to play outside, all things that people take for granted, are so important to us. With farming season ready to start, our concerns are even greater. In the past, the Mull Road has had very little traffic, and there seemed to be more money applications for dust control. However, the past 2 or 3 years have brought 3 farmer operators into our area with enormous machinery to prepare, plant, and harvest. One in particular grows tomatoes, and we can count on the trucks, 6 to 7 daily, using this road to connect with 401. Our own operation brings feed trucks, fuel trucks to the area, as well as having our own trucking business. The population has expanded from 2 to 3 houses at the Riverline Mull Road to 12 or more new construction. This brings more people walking in our neighborhood. 3 or 4 delivery trucks a day is common now with more housing. Yes, it has probably increased because of the pandemic, because I believe there are some things that won't change when life becomes what we think is normal. The location of Maple City Golf Course brings more traffic from the south, using this road to access the course, which is a few meters from the end of our road. All this to say, we take great pride in our appearance of our home and farm. It takes hard work and great expense to maintain property. We now have the 5th generation living here and pray that it is the safe environment for this to continue. We are proud to be part of Chatham-Kent. Please help us to continue this legacy and provide us with the basic protection necessary. Thank you for your time. Respectfully submitted. Gordon and Gail Ross.
The next deputation is from Bev and Trevor Gerard on item 19D. We are emailing in regards to the poor condition and ongoing issues on the Drake Road. I've read all the motions and information in regards to dirt roads and the maintenance in the municipality. My husband and I are both commercial drivers. The Drake Road is being used as a year-round commercial road. This road was never intended for heavy commercial use. There is a livestock farm across the road from us that has large, heavy transport trucks in and out 365 days of the year. I realize that some rural dirt roads have occasional heavy commercial traffic during harvest season. The Drake Road has now become a constant stream of commercial traffic. This type of heavy traffic causes significant damage to the road very quickly. We have seen multiple accidents when the road becomes full of potholes and starts the washboard effect. It is very easy for low-speed vehicles to lose control in these areas. It is not at all a complaint about our neighbor. His farm is immaculately maintained. His farm is providing Canadians with food we all need. With that being said, I'm asking for the road to be assessed and consideration to be taken that this road is no longer a quiet country road. Commercial areas need commercial roads. A little grading and liquid dust suppressant are not nearly enough to handle and maintain or solve the damage caused by heavy commercial traffic. In my opinion, this road needs to be paved to allow proper commercial access. Thank you very much, Bev and Trevor Gerard.
This next deputation is also with respect to 19D. We were encouraged to write you regarding item 19D on your agenda for this evening. It is our understanding that these comments could be read aloud. The comments are from 4 lifelong residents of 9th Line in the former Raleigh Township who have ongoing concerns with their road management. Comments are submitted by Mr. Charlie Slade of 6903 9th Line, Mr. and Mrs. Maurice Waddick from 7426 9th Line, Mr. and Mrs. Dawn Waddick from 7226 9th line, and Mr. and Mrs. Bev Doyle, 7663 9th line. Problems with gravel road management. Number one, pay more attention to the weather. Try to scrape the road after the rain instead of before, because the road turns to slop after a rain. Our road is heavily traveled. We have 2 mechanics and a horse riding academy on the road. In addition, horse, cattle trainers, and heavy farm equipment make daily use of the road, particularly the section of the 9th line between the Bloomfield Road and Dillon Road. This is not the case on the 9th between Charing Cross Road and Bloomfield. The gravel there has pretty much remained on the road instead of scattered to the edges. The section of the 9th between Bloomfield Road and Dillon Road probably takes a little more maintenance than the rest. It should be graded twice at a time in order to get down below the potholes. Grading at once just fills in the potholes, which reappear soon after traffic starts using the road again. Over the years, the road has been raised over a foot because the municipality kept putting gravel on it. The road could have been tarred and chipped more inexpensively. Dust control is pretty limited and is only spread down the center of the road. It doesn't last long because of all the traffic. There shouldn't be a suggestion of charging the resident for extra applications of dust control. It is a municipal responsibility. Additionally, cutting weeds along the ditches and shoulders of the road in October is absolutely wrong because the weeds have all gone to seed. This should be done in June, July, and August when the weeds are in bloom. Number two, the excessive use of unneeded gravel. In my case, the road has risen approximately 12 inches in the last 20 years. The raising of the road in front of my property has jeopardized my home to flooding because when the water rises in the creek, it could easily cross the road, thereby limiting the height. The word budget really irritates me. When needed makes more sense. The word quality always applies. Properly shaped roads virtually eliminate potholes. Dust control, the product being used is almost useless as compared to what we had years ago, which left no long-term damage. Use of water as dust control is useless. Solution, tar and chip so many miles per year. B-class roads other than local needs. Number three, our road is a mess. It is in constant need of repair. We have potholes, poor grade of gravel, and when it rains, it's just a mud mess. When spring starts, we have the dust, which is never ending, even with the little brine they put in. The accumulation of gravel is making the road 2 to 3 feet higher than our laneway. The solution would be to tar and chip our gravel roads. With all the money it costs for maintaining them, graders, wages, brine, gravel, etc., it's a never-ending job. You would think that it would be more cost-effective in the long run to have the road chipped and tarred. We pay our fair share of taxes and get very little satisfaction in return. The city seems to be well taken care of with new sidewalks, bike paths, while our country roads are neglected. It's time to stop and assess the situation and do the calculations. 4, dust. I have a pretty good dust screen of vegetation across the front of my property that was planted by my late wife. It seems to work well. There was an application of dust control within the last few weeks that for the present seems to be okay. The material used was much better than the previous material, which seemed to have a lot more sand than stone and potholed much easier. I believe it will always produce more dust as it appears to be limestone as opposed to other types of rock. My suggestion, based on the costs, would be to keep the intersections in front of residences covered. Tar and chip would be nice, but the Tooth Fairy is not going to pay for it. My part of the road always had a pretty good bed, as opposed to the part east of the Dillon Road, which has a sandy base. My problem is that each application of new material adds about 4 to 6 inches to the road. It is now 3.5 feet above grade. I put some material in my west driveway to flatten out the access to the road, and now it looks like I haven't done anything. Is there any way I can get excluded from future applications? I have a 4-wheel drive now, but the next step is a tracked vehicle.
And the last deputation on this particular report is from Joey Rush. It's Joey Rush. We live on Blind 4th line between Harwich Road and Mull Road in North Harwich. Our road is a constant mess with dust and grading of the road. I've talked to Paul Goldhawk over years to apply a better quality of dust control on our road. For a while, they would only apply the material in front of the resident's home or a skimpy pass down the center of the road. Within 1 week, dust is flying again. My suggestion that I have mentioned multiple times is to tar and chip our road. Chatham-Kent's response is always, it's not cost effective. Owning multiple road graders, packers for the graders, and applying gravel every 3 or 4 years, applying salt brine and maintaining gravel road is cost effective. It never ceases to amaze me when the road is in great shape, Chatham-Kent sends out a grader to grade the road. There is multiple days when you would like to open the windows on your home, but you can't due to the dust. For a while, the municipality was using crushed railroad stone mixed with gravel, nothing better than breathing dust containing kerosene from the railroad stone. Different neighbors, including ourselves, had flat tires from the stone also. And who pays for the repairs? That's right, the homeowner. I get the same answer all the time when I ask about tar and chip, and I believe now CK will tar and chip our road at the expense of homeowners. Answer this question for me. How did the Mall Road from Fairview Line to Louis Rush's home get tarred and chipped, and there is not one home on the Mall Road? Thanks for your time, Joey Rush.
The next deputation is on item 19G, which is the motion by Councillor Thompson regarding the master plan servicing study for Shrewsbury. And this is from Elizabeth Buchanan. As reported in the Blenheim News lately, not that it is unknown to all that live here, we, the residents of Shrewsbury, wrestle daily with drainage issues. We appreciate that Trevor Thompson works hard for our area, and I'm sure he has brought this matter before council. The municipality keeps issuing building permits for the village, and therefore the tax revenue from this area must be substantial compared with 8 years ago when we moved here. Like many property owners, we work and spend money every year to improve our property and enhance the village. We are deeply disappointed with the little investment that the municipality expends here. I am well aware that there are many areas of the municipality looking for money. However, given that you will be receiving infrastructure money from the feds, it would be a positive step for the municipality to at least have a drainage plan undertaken for the village. From New Scotland Line to the bay, there is at least a meter drop, and property designed roadside ditches, municipal drains, and swales could help move the water. We see new tile drainage on many farms upstream from our area, and all this runoff is funneled into the municipal drains that outlet through our village. Do these farmers pay to connect these drains? Is the additional water flow considered by your engineers, or do they just assume that it will find its way to the bay? Without a proper drainage plan, how do we at the receiving end know what is expected? Many of us have been calling for a drainage plan for years. If necessary, we can organize a large representation from the village to come to your meeting and make this request. I'm sure your personnel can prepare and submit a proposal for infrastructure funding that would meet the requirements. From experiencing these matters, I know how creative staff can be. Respectfully, Elizabeth Buchanan.
This next deputation is also with respect to 19G regarding Councillor Thompson's notice of motion. This deputation is submitted by Katie and Sydney Villaranda. Sydney is also an employee of the municipality, but is writing as a personal homeowner. My husband, Sydney, and I have lived at 6 Brock Street for 4 years. We have seen tremendous growth as well as a bustling tourist destination for the use of the boat launch, fishing, and birding in the small amount of time that we have resided here. We support a reconstruction of the ditches and drainages in Shrewsbury. It has been an ongoing issue since we moved to this community, and the municipality should take fiscal responsibility to repair the project and to repair and protect the environment while doing so. Kind regards, Katie and Sydney Villaranda, 6 Brock Street, Shrewsbury, Ontario.
The remaining deputations are with regards to 19H, which is the motion of Councillor Carmen McGregor, creating trails to accommodate off-road vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. This deputation is from Willie Payne. We at Tri-Shore ATV Club would value an off-road ATV trail system, which would be used for other activities such as hiking, for example. Conservation of land and bush lots is the priority of our ATV club. We can aid in trespassing on private lands, reduce vandalism, and maintain trails with proper liability insurance for ATV users. With the maintained trail system in Chatham-Kent, there would be tourism dollars spent in our community on hotel lodging, restaurants, fuel, and numerous other local vendors in the area. The protection of the naturalized areas in Chatham-Kent is of the utmost importance while providing a safe, maintained off-road trail system for families to enjoy. Signed, Willie Payne.
The next deputation is from Janet Barnes with regard to item 19H. The Tri-Shores ATV Club would appreciate a trail system within Chatham-Kent. Providing a trail system will aid to prevent trespassing on private property, provide maintained properties with proper insurance coverage, and responsible riders to assist in reducing the risk of vandalism. A trail system will bring tourism dollars throughout the food industry, hotel, and short stay businesses, souvenirs, construction maintaining applications, conservation education, and ATV business. Conservation of any property Tri-Shores ATV Club is allowed to utilize will be paramount. The Tri-Shores ATV Club is part of the Ontario Federation of All-Terrain Vehicles. The Ontario Federation of All-Terrain Vehicles Club have trail systems throughout Ontario. There are numerous contracts to utilize the municipal, county, and conservation authority properties throughout Ontario with the other 22 clubs that make up the Ontario Federation of All-Terrain Vehicles. The Tri-Shores ATV Club will provide $15 million in liability insurance for the property owner per incidence through OA SIS insurance. Trails are built and maintained by the Ontario Federation of All-Terrain Vehicles and the Tri-Shores ATV Club members at no cost to the landowner. The OFATV wardens and members are part of a security system to prevent vandalism on the properties 24/7. Working with the Tri-Shores ATV Club and their parent club, the Ontario Federation of All-Terrain Vehicles, is an ideal relationship for all Chatham-Kent property owners. Thank you, Janet Barnes.
This next deputation is by Brian Rood. He is TSATV Social Media Liaison. Good morning. I am writing this in favor of the motion for TSATV Club being presented to Council. I believe that it would be a great benefit both for community involvement, including getting people outside to enjoy the wilderness the same way people are allowed to during the winter months on snowmobiles to view our beautiful countryside. Furthermore, along with getting people to enjoy the rural areas of Chatham-Kent, it would also bring in an influx of cash for the community and local businesses, including gas and food and overnight accommodations for people traveling to enjoy the trail system. Another aspect of supporting TSATV on bringing trails to the community would be the conservation aspect of mature bushes, where we would have properly defined and maintained trails to avoid sensitive habitat being destroyed. Thanks for your time, Brian Rood.
The next deputation is from Dave Baker. Dear Chatham-Kent representatives, the Ontario Federation of All-Terrain Vehicles is a group of clubs in Ontario operated by volunteers with the goal of providing safe, legal, and sustainable trails across the province. Our staff and volunteers are constantly working with the provincial government and municipalities championing the right of the ATV rider. We endeavor to help the general public understand that our membership are a group of outdoor enthusiasts who respect other outdoor sports and are environmentally cautious. Granting the OFATV Club, such as the Tri-Shore ATV Club, access to property to maintain and steward ATV trails is entering into a mutually beneficial partnership. The OFATV Club provides $15 million in third-party liability insurance to protect the landowner, stewardship of property to maintain the trails and property, trail wardens to monitor trail use, educate riders, observe and report any trail hazards or repairs required, promotion of the trail and businesses that are accessible via the trails to bring revenue to the area businesses, and signage and mapping of the trails to ensure a safe and pleasurable experience for the rider. Best regards, Dave Baker.
And our final deputation is from Andrew Van Coot. I am writing this email to support the use of municipal-owned property for the development of a ORV ATV trail system managed by the Tri-Shores ATV Club. In my years of riding, I have seen the benefits to small communities through the Ontario Federation of All-Terrain Vehicles area. Having a legal trail system will not only attract tourism to ride, but to explore all the other amazing amenities Chatham-Kent has to offer, in turn boosting the local economy. Having groomed and cared for trails will also help prevent riders from trespassing, riding illegally, and damaging local properties. The OFATV and everyone at Tri-Shores prides themselves in doing the absolute best in preserving nature. Regards, Andrew Van Coot.
Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the consent agenda. And just to let everyone know which reports will be pulled this evening. We will be pulling 15B, supporting growth, immigration, and initiatives for a presentation this evening. 15C, application for exemption of part lot control, Maple City Homes Limited. We have a conflict under that one and we'll be voting separately. 15E, the municipally owned industrial business park pricing, Councillor Sakachi. 16B, Xerox print and fax services, Councillor Oche. Reports 18A, affordable housing development, 2021 Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative, Councillor Kirkwood White. 18C, the CK Arts and Culture Network presentation, Councillor Kirkwood White has pulled. 19A, 2021 Building Lifecycle Projects by Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor Latimer. Report 19B, amendments to long grass and weeds bylaw, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Brock McGregor. Report 19D, the notice of motion of dust suppressant level of service, Councillor Sakachi, Councillor Kirkwood White, and Councillor Latimer. Item 19E, the feasibility of a dog off-leash recreation area in Blenheim, Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Latimer. 19G, the motion of Councillor Thompson regarding the master plan servicing study for Shrewsbury by Councillor Thompson and Councillor Sakachi. And the final report pulled is the business improvement areas for the Board of Management appointments by Councillor Hall. Therefore, tonight, by one motion, we will be approving the consent agenda, which contains the following reports: 11A, B, 12A, B, C, 13A, B, C, 14A, B, C, D, 15D, 16A and C, 17A, 18B, 19C, F and H, and 20B.
Can I get Councillor Foss and Councillor Pincedo to move this, please?
Also move.
I'll second it, Your Worship.
Okay, we'll put it to vote.
Just waiting for one more. There we go. All votes are in. And motion passes.
We'll go to item 15, community development.
So we have 15B, supporting growth, immigration initiatives, and we have a presentation from Audrey Ansell, the Director of Community Attraction and Promotion.
Audrey, you're up.
Great, thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just wait to share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see that now. Could you please confirm?
Yes, Audrey, we can see your presentation.
Great, thank you, Judy. So good evening, bonjour, Mayor Caniff and members of council. Audrey Ansell here, Director of Community Attraction and Promotion, with a short update on how immigration is supporting growth in Chatham-Kent. Now, the work that occurs in community attraction and promotion related to immigration supports the people and culture area of our strat plan, specifically related to creating a culturally diverse community. So I recently shared with council some population data for Chatham-Kent. Population estimates from StatsCan point towards CK's population increasing by around about 4.5% following basically a decade of decline. What is interesting is, just one sec, close that. What's interesting though is the actual breakdown of the projections there from StatsCan. So it helps explain where some of the growth is coming from. Now, immigrants continue to arrive in Chatham-Kent directly from source countries, and that's the first column there labeled immigrants. And it shows the numbers running at over 100 over the past number of years since the 2015-16 period. The net non-permanent residents includes international students and foreign workers, and that's the last column there. And the growth here is clear, with 341 folks arriving in Chatham-Kent in the 2019-20 period. Chatham-Kent has long attracted secondary migration. So immigrants basically arrive to a big city and then move to Chatham-Kent. So the net intra-provincial migration data in the third column there shows people moving to Chatham-Kent from within the province of Ontario, and about 488 people in the 2019-20 period. Now, while Canadian-born people are included in that number, the significant numbers since 2016 likely also include immigrants, and we will have further confirmation on that when we have StatsCan stat data for next year from the census. So in support of this growth, Council will recall that Chatham-Kent was selected as one of 3 pilot communities for the provincial Ontario Immigrant Nominee Programme. The local pilot is branded as CK Immigrate to Work. And in that, partners on the project include Adult Language and Learning, our Chatham-Kent Chamber of Commerce, St. Clair College International Student Recruitment Division, and also our Chatham-Kent Workforce Planning Board, as well as our own Community Attraction Promotion Area and Economic Development Services. So the pilot opened in July 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. And since then, 24 individuals with full-time permanent jobs in Chatham-Kent have been nominated for permanent residence, and they are supporting a wide range of employers and sectors. So supporting the work to make Chatham-Kent a welcoming community is the CK Local Immigration Partnership, which Council has heard of a number of times over the past 10 years. And actually the Immigration Partnership celebrated its 10th anniversary last year in 2020. So Council will recall from previous presentations about the widespread of contributors to the CK LIP work. There are over 40 partners at the table there, and that's just an example slide of the number of partners who contribute to the work of the CK LIP. Last year, the CK LIP finalized its own strategic plan and really working to support making Chatham-Kent a welcoming community. And the intended impact statement for the LIP, so basically its mission, is that by 2025, more newcomers and immigrants in Chatham-Kent will feel welcomed and valued and will be contributing and thriving members of the community within 5 years of arrival to Chatham-Kent. So obviously measuring impact is important, and as part of that, Chatham-Kent completed its first immigration survey towards the end of 2020. So the Community Attraction Promotion Area, in collaboration with the CK LIP, working together to ensure that we understand what point we're starting from in terms of immigrants feeling welcomed and valued and being contributing and thriving. So the survey itself was completed by 116 respondents. You can see that on the slide there. The vast majority were in the 25 to 54 year age group. So really working age in our community. So some high level findings from that. In addition, around about 84.5% of respondents held a post-secondary qualification ranging from a college diploma through to a doctoral degree. And over 47% are involved in the community in volunteering. Interesting and probably largely unsurprising is that employment is the main driver of why immigrants are choosing to settle in Chatham-Kent, closely followed by family. Over 70% of immigrants who responded to the survey are working, 54% of them working full-time, and 8.6% are self-employed, so obviously running a business and contributing directly to the economy here in Chatham-Kent. Further information from the survey showed that nearly 59% are working in a job that is very closely related to their education, training, or experience. And in terms of sectors that they're working in, ranging from professional, scientific, and technical through healthcare into manufacturing, public administration, and educational services. So undoubtedly contributing to sectors that remained open and active during the pandemic. So I think the immigrant contribution is clear to Chatham-Kent. The numbers of immigrants arriving in our community are increasing. We are seeing our local settlement agencies continue to remain busy throughout the pandemic. So what do immigrants think about Chatham-Kent? Well, we know that we have work to do. Additional updates will be brought before Council in the coming months, but I will leave you with a word cloud that showcases the words that immigrants use to describe Chatham-Kent, and they provided those words in the immigration survey completed last year. So overall, a very positive sense of feeling and connection to Chatham-Kent, and we recognize that their contribution to our community and the fact that there is additional work to do. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I will leave that word cloud with you. Thank you.
Seeing no questions, can I get Councillor Oche and Councillor Solomon to receive the information report?
Move that.
Collector's Edition CD features a print signed by band members Brian May and Roger Taylor.
Councillor Finn, can I get you to second this, please?
Happy to second.
Okay, anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is 15C, application for exemption of part lot control, Maple City Homes Limited, 38, 42, 46, and 50 Lyttelton Avenue, Community of Chatham City. We have a conflict of interest by Councillor Solomon on this matter.
Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Crew, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move it.
I'll second it.
Seeing no questions, we'll put it to vote.
Just waiting for a couple more, Council. Okay, all votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 16, finance, budget, information, technology, and transformation.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, we have one more, 15E. Municipally owned industrial park, business park pricing.
Okay, can I get Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Crew to move this, please?
Yes, Mayor Caniff, so moved.
Be happy to second that.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
Sorry, Mayor Caniff, I did have one quick question. I apologize.
Oh, certainly. Go ahead, Councillor Sakachi.
I just wanted to pull it for one quick reason to see if I can speak with someone from the planning department or Mr. McAllister. So my question would be is in regards to the zoning of our municipally owned industrial park. Can someone just speak to the zoning of that park in regards to what those lots are zoned?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The lots out there have two special zones on them. The front half of the lots fronting 7th line or facing the 401 are called prestige industrial, and then the back part is called light industrial. They do both permit the same uses. They're different setback requirements is the main thing. The one being that the setback from 7th line is fairly significant to meet MTO guidelines from 401. The uses are more limited than what they are in our general industrial, and that was done with intent back in the day when the business park was developed and the types of uses. So it doesn't necessarily permit what I'll call heavy manufacturing or kind of nuisance generating, what I'll say, type of industry, but it does permit quite a wide range of uses in that zone.
Thank you, Mr. McAllister. The reason why I'm asking is that I'm just curious if we require a direction from council to potentially look at rezoning some of these lots. It's a great thing to see what's happening in the municipality on how fast some of our other industrial parks are selling. But I'm just wondering if, because of these lots some of them require such heavy industrial, if, we can look at making them more light industrial. Is that something that you guys are looking at currently, or is that something that would have to come from a direction of council?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, we are looking at it again based on a new request out there, but and we've made some changes in the past as these things come along. There are some considerations that we need to take into consideration just based on the interchange and improvements that are going to be made there as well in terms of the types of uses. So I would expect you'll see a report actually in one of the summer meetings with some additional changes.
Thank you, Mr. McAllister. In respect for time, I'm just curious if maybe we can just link up in the next few weeks just to go over a few things that I just wouldn't mind touching base on. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Still waiting for 2 counselors. One more. Okay, all votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 16, Finance, Budget, Information Technology, and Transformation.
17B, Xerox Print and Fax Services.
Councillor Oche and Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to move this, please?
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Councillor Oche, you had a question?
Yes, I had a few different print companies give me a call on this. Obviously, that's what I do as well as printing, so they know that I'm both a counselor and a printer. And so I looked at some of the prices, and they're great. Actually, I have to say I'm not sure how they're doing it because it's below paper costs, but they're charging us for copy in a paper. So I don't know how they do that, but I guess my biggest concern is what happens when it's not a normal job and we send it to them. Or I'm almost thinking that they might be making up some of the money that they're not making off of the photocopies on not normal jobs, like not just a straight photocopy job. So how do we go about getting a price on, say, 20 booklets, full color with a clear cover and spiral bound? This isn't just something that you normally get from this quote of theirs. So.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is Mike Branco, Manager of Service Management in Information Technology and Transformation. So we do, the internal municipal staff do have the costs as sent to council via email. If Xerox is unable to complete that, they will then quote based on potentially them outsourcing their print job as well. The quotes are based on the rates that they do give us though.
On the copy, okay. I'm going to come right out and say it. I've been told by a business that has done business for them that the rates are inflated, similar to like somebody giving Chatham-Kent a quote for at times for a bridge, for instance. So I'm at a loss here of how it can be still their pricing, their quote pricing that they gave us. I just, I know what the pricing was for some of these things, and it definitely wasn't the pricing that we're supposedly getting from Xerox through this quote. And just so everyone knows, I do not quote on anything for Chatham-Kent because until I am no longer a counselor, I will not quote on it. So I'm having a difficulty with this one.
Sorry, Councillor Oche, is there a particular question you want answered out of that?
Yeah. How? Okay. I guess what I'm going to ask is how. Sorry, I got a dog in the background here. How? So everything has to go through Xerox, I'm assuming, no matter what. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So there is the contract with Xerox where the offsite printing would be through Xerox, correct?
So if it's a job they can't do, we could not just notify another printing company in Chatham and say, Xerox has got capabilities to do this. So what would your quote be on this job if you have the capability of doing it?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So we do provide resources to staff to ensure that they're aware of the agreement with Xerox that's put in place, with obviously the favorable pricing, as you mentioned. There may be times where business units may reach out to other vendors depending on the item that they need printed. There may be times that Xerox reaches out to those vendors on our behalf as well to complete that.
Okay, so I guess maybe we need to talk afterwards, because I've got no problem with this, with the copies and that, because their price, like I say, is below what my paper price is. But I know what some of the projects are a lot more expensive than what other people in Chatham can run them at. So I'm just not sure how that's getting through. So maybe we can talk this week or next week, whenever, on that particular subject, because I've seen some of the pricing. So just so I just don't want us being taken for a ride by, a great price on copies, and then they do a huge project and they just made more than what most places would charge.
Okay, Councillor Bondi, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mary Caniff. I apologize if this has already been asked. I was kind of out for a second. I'm just looking at number 6. The fax services will be renewed, obviously, with a review of fax volume. So my question is, do we use faxes at all? Like, I kind of thought that was long gone, but apparently not. So I'm just kind of curious. And is there a cost associated with extending this part of the contract? I would just assume that faxes are almost non-existent, but I'm asking the question.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So faxes still are being used by municipal staff. They are being decreased, which is one of the reasons why we are choosing to renew it only until October 31st of next year. At that time, we'll reassess how many fax lines are still needed and determine if the fax contract should still be extended, and if so, how many lines should be extended.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mayor Caniff. Thank you, Mike. I'm just, again, curious. I guess faxes are used when the internet's down, which is like never, but is there a cost associated with having this agreement? Like, is there a blanket cost is what I'm getting at? Or is it based on the number of faxes, which I assume is rather low?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So it is based on the line. So there's a charge per line, per fax line.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Okay, all votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 18, Community Human Services.
First item, 18A, Affordable Housing Development 2021 Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative, OPHA Year 3, and municipal contributions.
Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor B. McGregor, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, your worship.
Happy to second it.
Councillor Kirkwood White, floor is yours.
Thank you, your worship. Just a very quick question to Ray Harper, please. I know that some time ago we issued an RFP for affordable housing, and I seem to recall the amount per unit was somewhere in the neighborhood of $125,000. So I was just curious as to whether you can give us some indication about the current cost of one affordable housing unit and how many units we're likely to create with the $600,000 that's being proposed in the RFP?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Ray Harper, Director of Housing and Services. 42 South End Crescent is an empty lot sitting amongst duplexes and fourplexes. In order to match our current zoning density requirements and to blend into the current neighborhood, it is anticipated that Chatham-Kent Housing and Services will receive proposals for 3 to 4 bedrooms per unit duplex or 1 or 2 bedroom fourplexes. And while the capital provided for this lot in this RFP is $600,000, which is $461,000 from the OFI and $138,000 from reserves, the overall project costs are anticipated to be approximately anywhere between $800,000 to $1 million in total. This is based on the index cost for an affordable housing duplex build in 2019, our 51 Kirk Street, which contained 8 bedroom, 4 bathrooms, and 2 kitchens in total. It is expected per the OFI guidelines that successful proponent will provide equity up to 4% of the total project costs and secure a mortgage for the remainder of those costs. Housing Services will review all the proposals considering the most appropriate use of the lot, the operational feasibility of the project, and the number of households assisted. Please know that there are currently 113 households awaiting a 3 or 4 bedroom unit in Chatham-Kent, and Chatham-Kent Housing Services haven't used a MMAH capital funding to build family affordable units. So these 2 units would provide assistance to families that may be looking at wait times in excess of 4 to 5 years if it was a duplex, for example. We did look at the rise in the construction costs, and we did allow a 30% increase for the index for these construction costs. But we will have to wait until we receive the proposals, and those proposals will determine the number of units and how much per unit costs.
Thanks very much, Ray. I really appreciate the comprehensive answer. That's the reality of the situation we're dealing with right now. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Waiting for one more. All votes are in. Motion passes. Now 18C, CK Arts and Culture Network. We have a presentation by the CK Arts and Culture Network. Members are James Schneider, Dan White, Tom McCarthy, and Eric Bristow.
May I speak?
Heather, Heather, were you going to introduce the
Yes,
group?
good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Slater, and I'm the manager for Arts and Culture. And as you will have seen in the information report on tonight's agenda, Chatham-Kent has a brand new arts council. It's called the CK Arts and Culture Network, and it actually grew out of one of the main recommendations of the 2014 Cultural Plan Implementation Project. Specifically, the establishment of a community-run network to support cultural collaboration between the municipality and its partners. So I'd like to introduce two gentlemen who are going to tell us a little bit more about it. They are the chair of the CK Arts and Culture Network, James Snyder, and the vice chair, Dan White. Over to you, James.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Through the mayor and your worship, to council, thank you for the opportunity. This is a project that has been discussed and moved on, you might say, since 2015, based on the Cultural Master Plan. We had an original steering committee that worked with Evelyn Bish and her team back in the day, got so far with temporary bylaws and everything else, and everything was put on hold while the Cultural Master Plan was under review and development. Back in October of last year, Tom McCarthy and I got together with Heather and with staff support, started the whole process all over again. On January the 4th, this year, We were incorporated as a nonprofit organization and are moving in the next 6 months to becoming a registered charitable organization as well, which allows us more opportunities to give tax receipts and be involved in other grants and programs that we wouldn't be advised to be involved in otherwise. First off, I'd like to thank Tom McCarthy for his involvement. He is retired from the board due to health reasons, but basically he and I have been working on this for 5 years, back and forth. And finally, basically in October of last year, we came together, started moving forward on this, developed the backgrounders that would make us become a registered nonprofit organization and build on what basically is essentially, as Heather has noted in her excellent report, as an arts council. We do call it a network because we like to believe that we are networking versus controlling, and that we are supporting all groups as noted as Heather, and then the background you have in front of you on that. The new structure is together. We have currently 9 or 10 board members. We are looking at recruiting more down the road, another 5 or 6. And Dan will speak a bit about that and the rationale for it. But the goals and purpose have taken some time to develop. And even the mission and vision are part of our ongoing strategic planning process, which we still have a ways to go, but this is the first start on this. I want to thank Hector for her technical assistance. I want to thank council for the support via the cultural master plan that we looked at for our guidelines for this. And our excellent initial board went from 3 members to incorporate to the 9 members or so we have now. And we are, again, as Dan will talk about, the rationale for recruiting more to bring up to 15. The last 3 meetings, we have done what we call, since March, we have done what we call back of house items to stabilize us. And it's not the most pleasant and fun thing to do, but things like bylaws, finance bylaws, committee structures, governance committee, finance committee, roles for the executive, roles for the members have all been in place now and are well on the way to being complete on this point. It took 3 meetings to get it all together, but we have everything documented and we have a Dropbox that will basically guarantee all of these items are a permanent record, because we need that for the Canadian Revenue Association and so on agency. Basically, for the initial board, you've seen the people we have at this point. They were recruited between January and March to start the process, and they represent arts and cultural backgrounds and skills from all over Chatham-Kent. We are not a Chatham-based organization. We are a Chatham-Kent-based organization, and we still have a ways to go to complete that, but it's well on the way of the process. We are also at this point ensuring that geographic representation is one of our most important items, along with the other things Dan will talk about. Plus, we've already created the Facebook page. We've done the media release, and Dan can talk a bit about what's happening next.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me here, Mayor and councillors. So the next steps for us will be we've created a media release which will be sent out to recruit 6 additional board members. Our goal as a board is to seek more diversity, representing we want the board to represent and reflect the whole community. So we're really looking to get diversity on the board. We have a governance committee that is beginning the process of identifying the skill sets that we currently have and the ones that we will need to be as successful as we possibly can now and in the future. We already know that we need somebody with expertise in finance, minute taking, and legal skills. So we're actively going to be seeking those skill sets out as well. We have a social media committee that's developing a webpage to promote and support arts and culture throughout CK, and to build awareness and connections and collaborations among all the arts, artists, and cultural groups regarding opportunities and grant programs that are available to members of this community. We are also members of the Alliance of Arts Councils of Ontario. Therefore, we have access to a great deal of experience and networking capabilities across the province. That's a fairly new organization, but it has a lot of the heavy hitters for arts councils, and they are very willing to share their knowledge and expertise. moving forward, our first project will be to call for nominees for an annual virtual cultural Hall of Fame to be celebrated during the Canada Cultural Days month in September. And in addition to that, we are exploring other arts and culture projects for development. And that is the end of our presentation. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Hearing no questions, you guys were pretty complete on that. I'll just make a quick comment. I'm really looking forward to the council get moving and seeing the results. This is an exciting time for Chatham-Kent arts and culture wise that we've got this group put together, and it will be some fantastic stuff coming out of there. So with that, can I get Councillor Kirkwood-White and Councillor Wright to move this, to accept the information report, please?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. Anyone opposed?
Your worship, I just wanted to make mention of the fact that I've been involved in a number of these nonprofit establishments, and I just want to congratulate the group for staying with this. I know that it takes a long time of effort and time to get one of these organizations off the ground. So congratulations to James and his team for what I hope will be a real opportunity for our community to enhance the social and economic health of Chatham-Kent. So thank you.
Thank you.
With seeing no other questions, motion passes.
Next, 19, Infrastructure and Engineering Services, 2021 Building Lifecycle Projects.
Councillor Kirkwood-White and Councillor Latimer, I guess you move this, please.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood-White and then Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make reference to the fact that in the report, Tom has mentioned the status of divestment of municipal assets. And I was wondering whether there have been any opportunities identified for sale of current assets, particularly in light of our current real estate market.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, at this point, I don't have that information. The statement in my report was just to outline the need for divestment and to inform you that should specific plans be in place, additional reports to council would follow. So that's about all I can tell you at this point.
I guess I was just looking for a hint of maybe some things that might be on your maybe list that we could have a look at this point, given the fact that people are generating a significant amount of money from the sale of assets these days.
Well, yes, my department does provide suggestions within our, to my GM and up the ladder. So, but I don't think it'd be fair to discuss right now what our suggestions are at this point, since no concrete plans.
Well, as long as you're making suggestions, that's the main thing.
Yes.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Councillor Latimer, followed by Councillor O'Shea.
Yes, I was just wondering, I'm assuming that any work involving buildings or services that our current service review may impact would only be considered for completion after the service review has been done, unless, of course, safety risks or significant cost impacts are involved. Is that correct?
So yes, the short answer to that is that's correct. Again, as long as we don't have leaky roofs or failing HVAC systems, that sort of thing. Yes.
Thank you. I was also wondering too, I assume most of this work is outsourced, but our municipal staff does complete some of the repair or replacement work, like painting or mending or rebuilding fencing. So ideally, I was wondering if we were considering, or we had used or have apprenticeship partnerships, or could we think about considering developing these with the local school boards or trade schools or unions or other businesses?
So at this point, my department just works by the purchasing bylaws, and and we have not done that in the past. If the municipality decides to go with some sort of a program such as that, we would definitely entertain that for small projects. However, these projects that you see in these reports, they're usually larger projects that do require professionals and contractors with all the proper insurances and bonding and all of that. So.
And I assume many of them would have apprenticeships too within their own businesses. So thank you very much, Tom.
Correct. Yep.
Councillor Oche.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is actually directed to Thomas Kelly. Thomas, Melissa and I have been in touch with you today on the Historical Society here in Tilbury and the roof, the shape that the roof is in. And we have let the gentleman know to contact Tom and yourself. But I just want to make sure that Thomas, so that the gentleman knows that reached out to us. We are going to go out and take a look at the roof of that building.
Thank you, Mr.
Actually, sorry, Thomas. I think I can answer that, or should answer that, because as I found out about this issue today, I've already made plans to have a contractor on site in a few days with my staff to look at it. And if there's an issue such as leaky roof, we will definitely take care of it, because it is our responsibility to do that. So,
and that would, oh, sorry, Tom, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's it. That's.
Oh, okay. So that would, I'm assuming, also come out of the building life-cycle reserves?
Correct.
Okay.
And
all right.
The items you see on this list, as is mentioned in these reports every year, we do receive all kinds of other emergency types that you won't see on this list, but that doesn't mean they're not going to get taken care of. And things like leaky roofs, we will take care of.
Great. Thanks very much, Tom and Thomas. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes. Moving on to 19B, Amendment to Long Grass and Weeds Bylaw 56-2020.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor B. McGregor, can I each move this, please?
I'm happy to move it.
Happy to second it.
All right, Councillor Thompson, floor is yours, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
All right, thank you. I do have an amendment to make to it, and the amendment would read that Section 9A that limits naturalized areas to side and rear yards only be removed from the bylaw.
Councillor B. McGregor, are you okay with that amendment?
That's very friendly, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just have a few comments because I imagine there is some conversation that wants to take part. And I do understand the concerns from people I've heard from about pests and aesthetics. I know as councillors, property standards issues take up an inordinate amount of our time, unfortunately. And this isn't about encouraging or allowing people to let their properties fall into disrepair. We all know those individuals out there, and I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see properties just lie fallow. That isn't what this is about. This is about allowing people on their properties, engaged, interested, and knowledgeable people, to create spaces for pollinators. It's about allowing people to slow the flow of water off of their roofs and onto their lawns before it hits municipal drains. It's about people creating things that's like what's in front of the LTVCA. It's a beautiful space. It's a properly engineered, properly maintained area that is a benefit to all. Now, I admit it doesn't meet everybody's aesthetic preferences. That's just the way it is. The goal is to increase the amount of insects, birds, and native plant species in spaces. And that, I believe, is something that everyone can support. With those comments out of the way, I'm sure there are others that wish to speak to this. I'll surrender the floor for discussion and reserve my final comments till the end. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Pinsino.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I did have a question for, I'm not sure if it would be for Gabriel or for Ryan, but as we heard in the deputations, there was some concern over the definition of infestation and some concern that that's something that could be weaponized in the bylaw for individuals to lodge complaints to neighbors and figuring out, what really indicates an infestation and who decides. Just wanted to get some clarity on how we manage that and what that will look like in the bylaw from a implementation standpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Ryan Brown, Director of Public Works. So we recognize this ahead of time through some discussion. And so that word infestation is in the bylaw, and we submitted an amendment to the clerk beforehand to add this definition of infestation. So it's clear to all. This definition comes straight from the Clean and Clear bylaw, which can also be used on properties with all the different respects of that bylaw, and one of them is infestation. So this way, the definition of each bylaw would have the same understanding of what infestation means.
Great. And then if there was a complaint of a neighbor to one of these type of projects claiming an infestation, how would that be identified?
Thank you. So the bylaw enforcement officer would have to attend the property and use their best judgment to determine, is the property overrun with this infestation? And that's a little subjective and is up to the bylaw enforcement officers to use some good judgment, because one rat in a rural area may not constitute an infestation, but 15 may. And I think you have to take it into consideration with the whole context of the project. Is the homeowner making an attempt to control the infestation? Those types of things. So it does rely on some judgment of the bylaw enforcement officer.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's an important distinction. And I know this is something new for our area, but certainly not new in Ontario. So there's certainly ways we can manage this. And I think in reading some of the comments online and hearing some of the concerns, I think it's important to understand what this naturalization type process means. And Kentucky bluegrass grass is not a native species. Just letting your lawn become overrun isn't the point of naturalization. It's it's an intentional process, and I think it's important to note that the way this bylaw is designed isn't going to permit anyone to just not care for their lawn or for their property. It really is just allowing those that have an intention of doing something to have a more natural aesthetic and a more natural impact on their surrounding environment. It allows them to do that safely and to make sure there's some guidelines around how it's going to impact neighbors. So I think that this is a good step forward, and I'm glad to see Councillor Thompson's amendment to include front yards as well, and glad that we've cleared up some of the concerns around the term infestation. Thank you.
Councillor Pinsino.
Thank you, Worship. I think this bylaw is going to be a nightmare to try to police. Understanding that our bylaw enforcement are going to be the ones that are going to be going out to the residents and trying to solve the issues. What experience, I guess, does our bylaw enforcement have in what's a weed or what's grass, or whether there's too many rodents, or I think that's its whole department. I can just see this is going to be a nightmare. In the report, it says a net neutral cost, and I think that's seriously underestimated. We deal with now a lot of bylaw enforcement due to property standards, and you can bet this is going to double it. I think there's a place for naturalized areas, but I don't think it's in the urban areas. And I think you're going to have neighbor pitted against neighbor. And honestly, I can't support this. If it was strictly park areas or urban area or rural areas, I could support it. I just think this is going to be a nightmare. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My question is, how does this relate to vacant lots? For instance, there's one at the corner of Grand and Victoria, a former church that was torn down years ago, and it was overrun with noxious weeds, I guess. Effectively, the grass wasn't cut, right? And at one point, it was a community garden, and the new ownership obviously didn't like that very much, so that ceased. So what we had was a big overrun lot, and the municipality had issued an order for it to be cut. So the perimeter around the lot was cut, but the interior of the lot was not cut. So my question is, what about these places that are not homeowners, and it's not a naturalization thing, it's just nobody's cutting the grass? And there's a number of these around different, well, Chatham anyway, but how would this bylaw affect these lots, which are not residential? So could a commercial out of town owner say, hey, I'm naturalizing, and it's a terrible looking thing? So, you know, where do they fall into this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan Brown, Director of Public Works. The great question. This is something we debated internally quite a bit, because this is a concern of ours that there are abandoned lots that we currently enforce this bylaw on, or areas that are awaiting development. And so there's a couple ways we're tackling that. One is if you look in the actual bylaw, there's a definition of naturalized area, which means a portion of a lot where a lawn previously maintained by an owner has been allowed to reestablish a reproducing population of native species through a combination of natural regeneration and deliberate plantings. And part of that deliberate plantings is to combat the landscape abandonment, that one cannot just let their property run wild. This exemption of the bylaws for people who have the best intentions. They're planning a bona fide naturalization project, as we've liked to say. And so that's one way to combat it. The other is that all property in Chatham-Kent is subject to the Noxious Weed Act of Ontario, and no bylaw can exempt us from that. It's Ontario law. And so if a property has noxious weeds on it, which that's quite an extensive list of what is a noxious weed, they would be subject to an order to clean it up. So those are some of the ways we tried to combat that challenge. And it's trying to find a balance act to have this bylaw and what it was originally intended for in balance of environmental aspects. So this is what we're recommending as a balanced solution.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Caniff. So Ryan, I don't know that I'm understanding fully, in that if an abandoned lot, not abandoned, but an uncut lot, is allowed to grow wild, for naturalization purposes, quote unquote naturalization, how do we determine, I guess I'm getting back to where maybe Councillor Pinson was going, how do we determine naturalization versus uncut? And I'm not quite clear as to what is a noxious weed versus naturalization. Doesn't, if you naturalize and do not maintain or cut grass in the hopes of naturalizing that space, how would one prevent noxious weeds versus, prairie tall grass? And how would you guys determine that it's a naturalization project rather than just simply uncut? Particularly with vacant lots, like homeowners, I think will have their eye a little more closely attuned to what's going on. But again, just using the example of down the street from me, how do you determine that's not naturalization versus just simply not cutting the grass?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the way this whole bylaw process starts is with a complaint. So if someone calls in and complains about that lot down the road from you, our bylaw enforcement officer, so this bylaw is generally applied by the Public Works Department. And so our road supervisors, myself, are all designated bylaw enforcement officers for this reason. And so we would attend, and once we provided them notice that, say, there was grass exceeding 8 inches, they would say to us, hey, this is a naturalization project. And then we would consult our list here of what constitutes an allowable exemption to this bylaw, which is in the bylaw about the buffer strip. And we would have to determine if this is a bona fide naturalization project. When I read the definition of naturalized area, it says a reproducing population of native species. So turf grass is not a native species. So if it's just grass out of control, that doesn't count as a naturalized area. If it's a long grass prairie project, those are certain types of grass. Our bylaw enforcement officers may not be schooled in this area right now, as this is kind of new to us as well. We would definitely potentially have some training for them. We also have a weed inspector on staff with Public Works who enforces the Noxious Weed Act of Ontario. He's very knowledgeable about different species. So that's another resource we have if it gets down to it. And you know, these are the questions we're going to have to ask ourselves. Is it deliberate? Was it a deliberate planting, or is it just out of control grass? Are there noxious weeds in there? You had asked the question, what is kind of a noxious weed? It's a very specific list set by the province. Comes to mind, giant hogweed, sow thistle, I believe, is on there. Like, it's a very defined list of what are weeds, and our weed inspector is very knowledgeable of that. Currently, this bylaw hasn't been in place, but I can tell you, you know, last year, I would say there was 2 issues that came to light of Public Works where someone was doing a naturalization project that maybe didn't comply to the bylaw. So far, you know, it hasn't been unmanageable for us. With the implementation of this bylaw, we don't know the kind of uptake we're going to get on it. But so is there some unique challenges with this? It's a change for sure. It may be a work in progress where we have to make additions later down the road. This is kind of the first implementation of it. But once again, we're really cognizant of the fact that you have the environmental aspects over here, and you have abandoned properties over here, and how do we manage the expectations for the good of the community?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Caniff. Ryan, back to Councillor Pinsonow's question, which is kind of hard to guess, I suppose, but how onerous do you think this will be on bylaw enforcement? Because as we all know, some people are pretty pernickety about their lawns, and if their neighbors, you know, growing tall dandelions, I don't know, and I'll ask for your expertise on this, but do you think this is going to be, you know, an overwhelming, I wouldn't call it a burden, but an overwhelming new effort and endeavor on the bylaw enforcement team? Which again, I know you can't really predict it, but just your thoughts on that, maybe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, it is new, like you said, and we don't have a crystal ball, but you know, when you say bylaw enforcement, just to correct, in this bylaw, it is enforced by Public Works, so it is the Public Works supervisor. As far as and currently, just my feeling, what I've seen, I don't think this is going to be a huge problem. It's if we say 100 naturalization projects emerge in Chatham-Kent, maybe 5 of them involve a neighbor dispute, which would lead to a bylaw enforcement officer coming out. So do I think it's onerous? I don't think so at this point in time. I think it's a select few people that are going to be doing this. In the future, if it becomes a problem, we're going to have to report back to council. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does, and thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much, Ryan. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan, followed by final comments by Councillor Thompson.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just actually, Ryan, your last couple of comments there were very much in line with what I was going to make comment on. I think personally, this is a really exciting bylaw, and thinking about a lot of the movement towards more naturalized areas within our community. I know that there are a growing number of families out there that are changing direction from having a more pristine lawn that we may have seen in the 1950s and 60s to something that's a bit more of a pollinator friendly naturalized area. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcome of this. And I agree with you that I think, you know, perhaps for every 100 new naturalized areas, we may have 4 or 5 educational opportunities. So I actually was just going to comment perhaps that our local libraries who have done some great jobs doing seed bank programs and supporting gardening initiatives may be able to offer some educational sessions in partnership with some of the groups like Relief Chatham-Kent to help raise awareness about this issue, and then also share some information about what you should and should be looking for when you're overseeing kind of the naturalization of your yard, going from that Kentucky bluegrass to something that's a bit more prairie longgrass and pollinator friendly. So those are all my comments. Thanks to everybody who worked toward this, and thank you so much to everybody who provided deputations about the importance of this in our community. I really appreciated the Anishinaabe story to help us to rethink how it is we can approach these conversations.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to echo Councillor Harrigan's kind of final comments there. It's definitely a change in mindset, what we're talking about here. And I think it's an important change, and it is a hard one to wrap your head around, though. So I think Mr. Brown hit the nail on the head with his comments. He kind of spoke on what I was going to reiterate, that this is not a laissez-faire sort of situation or bylaw. This is an active endeavor. If you're actively trying to naturalize your area, your property, your front, your side yard, that it's pretty clear, I think, to our bylaw officers. Again, as Mr. Brown pointed out, we're very good at recognizing our noxious weeds. We do a lot of it in the rural areas for farmers already. So I think that this is an interesting endeavor, an interesting first step. And if we need to look at it again down the line, I have no problems with that. But I think we need to make this move. I think every stem counts. And if there's a resident out there in a more of an urban area that wants to try it out, I think we should encourage them to do so. So those are my comments, and I'm hoping that council can see to support this. Thank you.
With that, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. And motion passes. Moving on to 19D, notice of motion, dust suppressant level of service.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Kirkwood-White, can I get what's on the floor, please?
Yes, Mayor Camp, I'd like to move it.
Happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Sakachi, the floor is yours, followed by Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I do have some amendments to make to the current recommendation, but a couple of quick questions to Mr. Brown in the meantime. I do notice in here, Mr. Brown, that it says if council wanted to increase the level of service to 2 applications per year, it is recommended that $950,000 be added to the dust suppressant budget. The comments I have, though, is that in our municipality, roads aren't like for like when it comes to gravel roads. We've heard that on the, through the deputations, as well as every councillor that sits in a, rural areas has heard that in regards to if it's a busy road compared to a road that's not utilized as much. So, hearing that, we haven't really come up with any improvements in this system. I guess we have a small win in regards to going to a reserve style, which was one of my hopes. So there was really no way that we could look at improvements in this process to treat heavier utilized roads a little bit differently.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there is a comment in the report, when I was talking to all the road supervisors about, where's the room for improvement? What can we do better? Because there's always a way to improve. And one topic that came to mind is how they time the application. This spring was incredibly dry, and timing was a really important factor because the roads were quite dusty. And so the common theme across our 10 divisions was that they rotate where they start. So one year, say they start in the north end of their division, and then the next year they kind of start in the south and move north, so that over time, everybody kind of gets a fair share. Some people get it first, someone has to get it last. But, I challenged the supervisors that, and they do this already, but I did point it out to them that our heavily traveled roads need to be prioritized in higher order. That busy road should be kind of top of the list with some understanding of geography that, if you're going to do the busy road and there's a small, less busy side road, it probably makes sense to do it at the same time. So we're not driving a grader across the township. And so, I think there is some small wins to be there. We're doing a program this year that we're trying in different divisions where the ground was so dry that we've sent some water trucks out right in front of the grader to try to add some moisture to get some compaction when they grade it. So, these maybe aren't the huge wins that we want to see. If we want to improve the total level of service and the total number of applications of brine, that is the number we've calculated.
But you can admit that not all roads are like for like in regards to the amount of, I know that we don't quantify the amount of traffic that are going on gravel roads regularly, but you can admit that there are a lot more busier gravel roads that should be treated a little bit differently than some of our side roads that see irregular traffic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely. We have roads that I would say are under 10 cars a day. And we have some gravel roads that are 500, and so where we do give credit to that is they do receive more maintenance. So that level of service, when you were referencing the finance here where we have the numbers of breakdown, that level of service is enough to supply one pass of dust suppressant on every road. And then there's that costs about $600,000, for round numbers in brine. There's $100,000 left to address in front of houses later in the year, and to go back to those busier areas. I can think of a couple roads off the top of my head that experience heavy truck traffic that ended up with the potholes get so bad you have to regrade it midsummer, and if you regrade it you have to reapply the brine. So that $100,000 is what we're doing. If you increased it, as I'd mentioned in here with the 950, there's kind of a corresponding, now every road could get it twice. And, maybe some of those busier roads might get that third little spot treatment. It's all on how we manage the budget. But I do recognize that they also are graveling level of service to kind of pull that in a little bit, is that gravel roads get gravel every 3 years. However, some of those really busy gravel roads receive gravel almost annually, and some very tiny, small, unused gravel roads might not see gravel for every 5 or 6 years. So that is our, we have this set level of service, but I do agree with you that there's some room for flexibility due to highly traveled gravel roads.
Thank you, Ryan. I'll keep my further comments relatively light now. I guess my one comment is that right now it just seems like there's so much subjectiveness to the whole dust suppressant level of service. As you know, you've been very great at talking to me recently. I went to a site in a very recent past, and you couldn't even stand outside this gentleman's house. And your road supervisor was nice enough to go within a few days and said, no, this is kind of normal. And I guess it just goes to the subjectiveness of it. But it is not just a luxury; it's just the ability to enjoy your house and sit outside and have your windows open. My last question to you would be is that there was a brief little bit in regards to a pilot program that was done. Can you just tell, since there's no real data that we've been shared, can you just tell me why that pilot program was not successful?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're referring to the alternative product that we tried, that we mentioned here in the report?
That's correct. Yes, that's exactly.
So we did try that product in 2019. There's a paragraph on it in the report. It was a newer starch-based product derived from corn, and it was in our testing, we came out to find it probably worked as equivalent to, sodium salt-based products. There was some challenges. Obviously, it's newer, so no one was used to the kind of different application style. But the true thing was the cost. So the method of application, our equipment would need to be reworked to use that. But also this product at this time was over 10 times the cost of our traditional product. And so, that may change in the future if that product or others, there are other people working on sugar-based products or corn oil-based products. There's different things out there. Unfortunately, they don't have the scale yet to bring it down to pennies per liter. And, our current dust suppliers that supply the dust suppressant, they are, it's extremely cheap, and the volumes we're buying makes it really hard to compare to like a commercially produced product. That may change in the future, and we are definitely on top of that. We're trying to see what's out there and try different things. I've been working with the Ontario Good Roads Association. This is a huge topic for them that everybody's asking about. What is the best way to manage gravel roads? And I've been trying to push that committee along and be a part of it for Chatham-Kent because I think we have a lot to offer. We did a test, and we're open to more testing for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Wren. I was going to bring some amendments, but I think that I want to speak a little bit more with on the Infrastructure and Engineering Committee on this one, and then maybe have a brief conversation. We can put that on the agenda. And I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Councillor Kirkwood-White, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Ryan, I've spent 4 decades in the social sector, so I'm still learning about roads and bridges and drainage ditches. And the report talks about 1,785 kilometers of gravel roads that we're responsible for. And given the numerous requests that were highlighted in the community engagement process for tar and chip, could you explain the process that we go through, the decision-making process for when we determine a transition from gravel to tar and chip and or concrete or whatever else?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Mr. Corso is on the line, and he had prepared an answer for that question.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Jerry Corso, Manager of Public Works South, IES. There's 3 methods that we come together to evaluate this. It's the road grade policy is one where everyone can apply based on residents. Engineering also identifies sections of roadway that would be placed on the capital for currently that are not funded. And we do have some additional roads that are on that list at the present time. And engineering has also informed me that a transportation master plan has been completed, and there might be some roads that are identified on that list for upgrades. I don't have that list present to me at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Councillor Latimer.
Thank you through the mayor. I think somebody dubbed me the gravel queen in Chatham-Kent because I got lots of feedback with regard to this report throughout South Kent and beyond. So I did send some questions ahead, and I think Ryan and Jerry could answer them. One was, what's the difference in cost between applying, the 2 applications that people are asking for and implementing our current cost plus implementing all the ACRs? In other words, all the additional costs on top of it. Is there a major significant difference in applying 2 costs? In other words, is it how close to another $1 million do those additional ACR management passes add up to?
Thank you.
And all
Mayor.
the work that's entailed.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. to double the actual factor, it's in the report, which would be an additional 950,000 to manage the actual ACRs. Per ACR type thing, it would be like probably a supervisor, operator, equipment, totaling of approximately of 10 hours per ACR. To get down to like 75 ACRs, it probably would be a double application. To get it down to minimal ACRs, it would probably be higher. It could be as close to $4 to $5 million.
Do you think, Jerry, you'd have that many ACRs if you did the double, or if we used a different type of dust suppressant? And maybe I'll leave it there, because I think there's more room for conversation there, and to look at the numbers more objectively, I guess, or for us to see the numbers, because we haven't seen all those numbers, right? I would like to ask, thank you for explaining, Ryan, the type of organic based product that we use, the starch, but have we looked at use of canola oil or the soy based organic compound, or is it even available to you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there was two products you had mentioned. I was not aware of those two products. There okay. Is the local product that we tried is being brought in by a local construction company. They were trying it and they approached us. And that, like I mentioned before, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem where the cost isn't going to come down until one brings the product in high quantities. Like, we're talking millions of liters. And so, in our pilots where we were seeing 10 times cost for these manufactured products, that may come down if it was a commonly used product. And so that's why we're out here trying to thank you for bringing those to my attention. One was out of the United States, and I believe the other was out of BC, and they're not local, yeah, but open to the conversation with them to try it and see what we can try. I would love to find a product that was manufactured here in Chatham-Kent. It would reduce trucking, which is the big cost of the brine. Yeah. Is trucking.
Major cost. Yeah.
Producing locally is the challenge. So happy to work with anybody that's listening. Let's come up with something that's super effective and both in cost and performance.
So that's great. I'd like to follow that up with you. The other is, I had a question from one of the residents actually this morning. They asked if there was a difference between the dust suppressants that we purchase from our different dust suppressant providers. Do we have one or two? I don't know.
Yes, Councillor Latimer, we have two products, salt brine and calcium chloride. The calcium chloride we utilize for our life cycle gravel applications. It binds it harder. It's a little more expensive, obviously, but it does obviously a little better job. Where our salt brine is a little cheaper, and we can place that a little more economically.
That explains the comment I got this morning. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. I guess what I'm going to ask, I mean, I'm going to accept this report. I have no problem. I don't agree that there was no consistent theme noted in the community comments. What's evident is that status quo is not adequate. But I do appreciate Ryan and Jerry, your team's efforts and continual patience and consideration and ability to explain why you do, what you do, when I call or when one of our residents calls, because you also do follow up with each of those, and that is very much appreciated. But I would like the team to consider, and like Councillor Sakachi, I would like to follow up with you with regard to considering objectively assessing the level of traffic and the type of traffic that is on our consistent problem gravel roads, and how we address that, how we objectively assess that, because I think that's maybe the crux of the issue in a lot of our more worrisome and frankly where there's safety concerns and ongoing issues with regard to dust. I would like us to consider use of tall grass planting versus mowing the right of way. I think that might keep some of the dust down. I also, to follow up Ryan's comments, I am pleased to hear that you're going to look into other environmentally friendly dust suppressants. And perhaps we can talk about using a wider pass or 2 initial passes if we can get the costs down. And so those are the things I'd like us to look at, particularly for the 2022 budget. And again, thank you very much for your patience and perseverance and putting up with the gravel queen of Chatham-Kent.
If I could make a quick comment, Mr. Mayor, regarding you were saying the traffic counts, and there must be a point where tar and chip becomes cost effective compared to grading. This is something I've directly emailed to the OGRA to say this needs to be an objective of the OGRA Gravel Roads Committee, that those numbers are complicated. How much grading, how much brining, the dust suppressant, all of those numbers. When is the break-even point when one should consider paving a road because of cost effectiveness? And that's a highly debated topic, and that is something I've asked the committee directly needs to be an outcome. And hopefully I will be on that committee. Thank you.
Councillor Foss.
Thank you, Your Worship. A comment that was made earlier, I think by Jerry, regarding the engineering looking at potential upgrades to roads. Could Jerry explain that to me, please?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I was just in a conference this morning with engineering, and they indicated that they have indicated some roads that are in the capital budget. I don't have the capital budget listing in front of me, and but those were indicated to me this morning. I didn't have any further on that.
Okay, I guess I don't want to send a false hope because I get several requests from constituents wanting to upgrade their road from gravel to tar and chip, and from tar and chip to paved roads. We've dealt with that extensively, and that's why we put together road upgrade policy. And I think if we're going to change that, then I think we need to give that strong consideration, because I know that the demand for that is going to be relatively high, and I'm not sure whether we can afford that initial expense, because it's quite expensive to go from gravel to tar and chip, or tar and chip to paving. So I just want to make sure that what we're saying is not giving false hope that we're looking at something that we may not be able to deliver in all areas. That's my comments. Thanks.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Mine's towards Jerry. Out here right now, we have a lot of dust complaints every day, and the roads departments tell me they're not being able to get the brine to put on the road. Is there a reason for that, or is it just slow this year, or what's happening?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I have spoken to the scale house area for our contractor, and they're having a tough time hiring truck drivers. We are constantly trying to morph our operations and to maybe getting extra loads throughout the week. We are also looking at trying to prepare the roads and maybe order multiple loads when we possibly can, so we're prepared with extra roadway and maybe trying to extend shifts as well. But it's all based on truck driver availability that the contractor is having a hard time getting right at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Council still waiting for 2 more. There we go. All votes are in. And motion passes. Moving on to 19E, feasibility of dog off-leash recreation area, community of Blenheim.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Latimer, can I put this on the floor, please?
Happy to move this recommendation, Mayor Caniff.
And I would be happy to second with an amendment that I put forward to Judy already. I know Councillor Sakachi is aware of this, and what I wanted to bring forward.
Councillor Latimer, we have to get the mover to actually make the motion. Otherwise, yours will just be seconded, and then you'll have to put in a motion amendment later.
Councillor Sakachi, are you willing to put on this as an amendment?
Yes, Mayor Caniff. The reason why I pulled this report is I've been lucky enough to have a good, extensive conversation with Councillor Latimer and Dr. Redike in this regard, and I'm very happy to see the second part of this recommendation.
Okay, so Councillor Latimer, you'll second this, and then I'll Councillor Sakachi, then over to Councillor Latimer.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My comments are very brief. I'm very thankful and appreciative of the administration recommending this location. I think this would be a major asset to Blenheim and the South Kent area. We are a growing community. And just one quick question to Mr. Kelly in regards to the process of the next steps. How do we start developing the committee? Because I've already had a lot of interest in people looking forward to being part of this initiative to get this park established.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott Mailing is on the line. I'll defer that question to him.
Scott, we can't hear you. There you go. Sorry, Scott, we still can't hear you.
Okay, I'll answer the question then.
Thanks, Thomas.
In the report, at the top of page 3, it's really a volunteer committee. So we really look for volunteers to move forward and to determine who would like to step forward and to really lead this effort. So that would be the next step really for us and for that committee to submit the application to the Parks and Rec group.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And can you, when this becomes established, is it possible to get an email sent through myself as well so I could forward it to the people that have reached out to me?
Yes, absolutely, for sure.
That is all my comments, Mayor Caniff. Thank you for the time.
Councillor Latimer, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you to Councillor Sakachi and especially Dr. Reddick, who is in agreement to use some of the funds from her reserve that supports all families in our community. I know as the liaison for the Chatham-Kent Accessibility Advisory Committee, they are very pleased to realize that Chatham-Kent is recognizing that built-in accessibility, when you can do that, when you start a project, is so much better than trying to retrofit and have to fix something after the fact. So I would ask perhaps Scott, if you could, or Mr. Kelly, if you could contact or reach out to the Chatham-Kent Accessibility Advisory Committee. I know they'd be more than willing to perhaps a member would be glad to sit on this committee and be the liaison.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll absolutely do that contact. We work with them very closely on a number of issues.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Thomas.
Councillor Thompson.
There we go. Now I got myself unmuted. All right. Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask, a resident got in touch with me today and he was curious if the dog park could work within the, I guess the existing users of the stormwater pond, is the way he put it, meaning the geese and the ducks and the wildlife that's already there. I assured him I did think it was going to be a problem, but is that something that we've considered?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what the report is just identifying the area for council approval, which is the stormwater retention area. What you're really discussing now is those are the details that we get into, and that's the process we follow. We'll go through that evaluation. I really don't anticipate anything, Councillor Thompson. I don't know why that would be a case, but I know that at one golf course I'm at, they use a dog to get rid of geese from the golf course. So, but that's something that's the consultation, the community input we get, and we have those discussions. So that'll be the next phase. Thank you.
Excellent. Also, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, potentially Councillor Sakachi and Latimer's as well. I know this area also being eyed as a potential spot to do some tree planting and a little bit of, not naturalization, I suppose a little bit, but yeah, tree cover. I know there's a group out there working right now. So I think, again, that will work into the consultation aspect. And I think years down the road, we can have a really nice spot there in South Kent. So I'm glad this is coming forward. Look forward to seeing it blossom and grow in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bondi.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mary Kenneth. Yeah, I support this totally. There's a dog park in Chatham, which I attend with my dog, of course, regularly. It's very successful. It's very well maintained, and I'm sure that it's maintained by volunteers. It's a great spot. It's really, really, it's very successful. There's a lot of people there all the time. It's nice and clean. It's a great opportunity, particularly for people that are living in the cities that don't have the opportunity to take their dog off a leash ever because you're in the city. So it's really a great thing. Now, my question is, how do we fund this? And is there any idea of what it would cost and where would the funding come from? It may be in the report. I looked for it. I didn't find it, but that would be my question. And again, I'm very supportive. I'm just curious.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, that's part of the process. After the consultation, we'll go through and we'll determine really what the costs are. We'll come back to council with the costs of that, and we'll have to determine the appropriate reserve and life cycle.
Great, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kenneth. Thank you, Thomas.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes. Moving on to 19G, motion of Councillor Thompson regarding drainage plan and master plan servicing study for Shrewsbury.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor Sakachi, can I get you with this on the floor, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to move it.
Seconded, Mayor Kenneth.
Okay, Councillor Thompson, the floor is yours, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
All right. Am I going to have to read all this out or how's that work? I forget.
Councillor Thompson, I think you wanted to put the motion on the floor of your new wording. And so I do think it's important to read that out for everyone to hear. And that would be what you're moving, not the old one.
All right. I'll just start from the top. Why not? Whereas resiliency, economic prosperity, and open and transparent government are all key elements of CK Plan 2035. And whereas the community of Chatham-Kent continues to promote tourism, encourage assessment growth, and the creation of housing opportunities, whereas the community of Shrewsbury has struggled for decades without a formal community drainage plan, whereas that lack of drainage plan is linked to inadequate road drainage. Road drainage is critical to the long-term sustainability of any roadway, whereas Chatham-Kent's vision statement of a welcoming, healthy, prosperous community that is culturally rich and naturally innovative requires investments in assets and infrastructure. Therefore, be it resolved that the municipality of Chatham-Kent initiate a master plan servicing study for the community of Shrewsbury to investigate drainage, stormwater, sanitary, and water main requirements to ensure long-term community sustainability. Included in the study will be erosion control measures for the protection of municipal infrastructure along the shorelines. The study will provide project cost estimates along with the fair distribution of these costs among residents and the municipality. The master plan servicing study will be funded through the municipal storm, 60% in PUC water, 40% life cycle reserves, with PUC approval to be obtained at a future PUC commission meeting. Number two, the master plan servicing will commence following a public information center meeting where all the project details will be communicated with a minimum of 66% of community support confirmed.
Any comments, Councillor Thompson?
Just a few at this point. I wanted to say thank you very much to Mr. Quinton, Mr. Kell, Mr. Shropshire for helping me wordsmith this a little bit to get it a little bit more palatable and a little bit more in line with the way we like to word and write motions. I think it does, in the large sense, get accomplished what we hope to get accomplished in Shrewsbury. I know there's some concerns regarding this work, but I think it's important to recognize that the community of Shrewsbury needs a drainage solution. They're not a community that's ever going to need a secondary plan for the south side of the town. There are no real rural bridges on gravel roads that need to be rebuilt. There's no big expensive bridges that will ever need to be rebuilt in Shrewsbury. What they do need is a drainage solution. And the community of Shrewsbury has known this for years. We've gone around for decades talking about this, and the stumbling block has always been who pays for the work, the study, that is, not the work, the study. I think everybody recognizes that the work is further down the line, but the community always concerned that the study cost should come from the municipality. So I think holding a PIC to lay out exactly what's on the table and to lay out the municipal involvement is a good step and one that needs to take place. And I think the way it's funded will set a lot of hearts and minds at ease in Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury's changed over the last 10 years. It's not the community it once was. It is on an uptick. It is on a growth trajectory, and it is one that needs some attention and some investment through the municipality so that they can continue to grow and add to the tax base. And I think I will leave my comments at that.
Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My original comments were associated with the original motion that Councillor Thompson had put in his notice of motion. I can support this as it stands right now. And, we all know that Shrewsbury has some major challenges in drainage. This year we've had a little reprise from the high water, but we know that will be back again. So I can definitely support this with the PIC because I think it's very important for the public to understand the cost that's going to be associated with it and the need for this to happen. Thank you.
Councillor Latimer.
I too am very happy to see this wordsmithing, and obviously very, very glad to support a sustainable plan for Shrewsbury's water issues. I'm just wondering, I got a question from a resident. What is the estimated cost of the master plan servicing study? Do we have any idea?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Thomas Kelly, phoning General Manager of IES. If it's possible, I'd like to reserve comment on that. I can send that to council maybe separately, only because it will be a competition. We will send this out as FP. And many times when we speak about these things in open session, it gives the consultants a feel for what we're budgeting. So if it's all right, I'd rather follow up with you separately on that, if that's appropriate.
Fully appreciate that, Thomas. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. The motion passes.
Item 20, corporate services.
20A, Business Improvement Areas BIA Board of Management appointments.
Councillor Hall and Councillor Bondi, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
Yeah, happy to move, Mayor Caniff, and I do have a comment. I don't know if it's an amendment, but an adjustment, I guess, to the Wallsburg BIA list, but happy to move.
And I'll second. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Like I said, I have a quick amendment to make, and I sent this to Judy ahead of time. I'm not sure, Judy, if we have to vote on this, but there was a couple of resignations for the Wallsburg BIA board member list. So the list for 2021 is as follows: Dave McCarron, Anita Hyatt, Alina DeBacher, Kathy Kogi, Karen Moran, Todd Shepley, and Dan Maurer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have taken the names that we received from the annual general meeting, but we understand that there has been changes since the annual general meeting. So happy to make those changes on behalf of Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Judy.
Seeing no questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes.
Okay, we have 4 notices of motion, one from Councillor Latimer, 2 from Councillor Sakachi, and 1 from Councillor Crew. So we'll start with Councillor Latimer. We'll go to Councillor Sakachi for 1, then we'll go to Councillor Crew, and then we'll come back to Councillor Sakachi for the last one. Thank you. All right, Councillor Latimer.
Yes, I, Councillor Mary Claire Latimer, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the June 14th council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas there are 700 retirement homes in Ontario regulated by the Retirement Homes Regulatory Authority in accordance with the Retirement Homes Act. This includes the Residential Tenancy Act, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, the Ontario Fire Protection Act, the Personal Health Information Protection Act, and college and nurse standards. And whereas retirement homes are privately owned, renting private accommodation to seniors without access to public funding by the government, the same way home care services and long-term care homes do. And whereas currently 60% of these Ontario retirement homes that are small facilities under 70 beds are failing financially and are facing imminent closure, risking loss of supportive, safe, and secure environments for 60,000 retirement home residents in Ontario, as per Ontario Retirement Communities Association. And whereas the cost of living in a retirement home is $1,500 to $6,000 a month, which is significantly more expensive versus the cost of home care services and or long-term care homes, as most assisted living retirement homes do not provide personal care as a part of the basic fee, instead requiring residents to pay full cost of accommodation and any care services they require. And whereas home care services may be provided at no cost to resident only if appropriate levels of community service provider staffing is available. And whereas many retirement home residents or individuals in the community who do not require long-term care levels of service are forced into long-term care beds due to extinguishing funds and or lack of adequate financial means to pay for retirement home and or required extra personal care services, inappropriately burdening limited long-term care bed or acute hospital bed capacity. And whereas many seniors living in retirement homes and who experience worsening medical conditions, increased number of falls, and overall increased frailty often do not move on to long-term care due to lack of long-term bed availability and or family preference, placing significant stress on retirement home staffing complements and financial resources. And whereas retirement homes have not been afforded recent government nursing and or PSW staff subsidies as provided to home care service providers and long-term care homes. And whereas retirement homes have not been included in recent reduction of resident activity restrictions. Therefore, be it resolved that the municipality of Chatham-Kent request that the Ontario government, 1, enable individuals in the community opportunity to apply for financial assistance from the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility to help cover accommodation costs and or required personal care service costs at retirement home level, similar to available funding assistance for home care services and long-term care homes. 2, recognize retirement homes as an essential community healthcare partner, and implement an equitable service funding program that facilitates and enables retirement homes to safely care for residents who require significant personal care assistance while awaiting a long-term care bed. 3, afford equitable nursing and PSW staffing subsidies retroactively across all divisions of the community healthcare provision sector, including retirement homes. And 4, allow for equitable resident activity levels across all divisions of the community healthcare provision sector, including retirement homes. And further that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility, and all Ontario municipalities.
Councillor Sakatchi, followed by Councillor Crew.
So that's number 1.
Councillor Latimer, do you have another one?
Well, I thought I had another notice of motion with regard to that was more imminent, that we would be I would be asking to vote on this evening.
Okay, that's
Is
under
that correct, Judy?
that's under the information package. Okay. Nope. Sorry, Judy, go ahead.
No, she does
Okay.
have one that she wanted to
No,
do.
I have one. Thank you. Yep, so I can do that now, Judy?
I would wait until the last notice of motion. Let's get the other one, and then we can deal with that one tonight. So if we wait until the end.
Yeah, I'll call
That's
on you
great.
after Councillor Sakatchi's
Sure.
second one. So Councillor Sakatchi, followed by Councillor Crew.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Anthony Sakatchi, here provide notice. I will bring the following motion for voting and discussion on the June 14th meeting of council. Whereas the pandemic and subsequent public health measures have resulted in capacity restrictions of various businesses due to limitation of indoor person gatherings, be it resolved that the municipality will allow businesses such as dance, yoga studios, and fitness institutions to operate outdoors on municipally owned property in Chatham-Kent at the rate of $19.30 per hour plus HST, which will be waived for the trial period of 2021. The process will be contact Parks and Recreation and Cemeteries office, indicating the location, dates, and times requested, provide proof of $2 million in liability, general liability insurance, provide a COVID-19 compliance plan that satisfies the provincial roadmap to recovery, and pay the $19.30 per hour fee plus HST, and sign a rental permit for subsequent years after 2021.
Councillor Crew, then followed by Councillor Sakatchi, then followed by Councillor Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Marjorie Crew, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the June 14th, 2021 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas the Chatham Colored All-Stars first formed in 1932, with the majority of the players being from North Buxton, Chatham, and Windsor areas. And whereas they began competing in the Chatham City League in 1932. Whereas they broke color barriers, being the first Black team to win a major championship, competing for and winning the Ontario Baseball Amateur Association's Intermediate B Championship on October 24, 1934. Whereas the team was honored by both the Chatham Sports Hall of Fame and the Ontario Hall of Fame. And whereas in 2001 and 2002, the Toronto Blue Jays wore the replica Chatham Colored All-Stars uniform in honor of the team when Major League Baseball honored the Negro Leagues. Therefore, I move that the Chatham-Kent Council send a letter supporting the induction of the Chatham Colored All-Stars to the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, to the Director of Operations, Scott Crawford, and that this letter in motion be shared with all municipalities and councils in Ontario and Canada.
Okay, Councillor Sakatchi, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Anthony Sakatchi, here provide notice I'll be bringing the following motion to the June 14th meeting of council for voting and discussion. Whereas during a pandemic, trails and other open space amenities have been documented and confirmed to be more heavily utilized, and whereas despite the increased usage, service levels have remained relatively status quo, be it resolved that administration conduct a service level review of these areas, including staffing allocations, maintenance, garbage recycles, porta-johns, and signage to determine if any changes in service levels are warranted.
Okay, Councillor Latimer.
I, Councillor Mary Claire Latimer, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion for discussion and voting. Whereas the Ministry of Long-Term Care is reviewing a proposal from Arch Capital Management Corporation, issuing a long-term care home license to Tilbury Manor Nursing Home, a 75-bed long-term care home currently located at 16 Fort Street in Tilbury, Ontario. Home 75 beds with an additional 85 beds allocated by the ministry. Is proposed to create a new 160-bed long-term care home, currently known as Arch Long-Term Care Lakeshore, the replacement home, to be located at 1628 Essex County, Road 22 in Lakeshore, Bell River, Ontario. I hereby bring the motion that administration work in collaboration with MP Rick Nichols' office to keep these 75 long-term care beds and any new long-term care bed allocation here in Chatham-Kent. And that two, that administration attend the teleconference public meeting, June 21st, 2021, to orally present our concerns and desire to see these 75 long-term care beds remain in Chatham-Kent. And that administration submit our concerns and desire to see these 75 long-term care and any new long-term care bed allocation to remain here in Chatham-Kent in writing to the Ministry of Long-Term Care on or before July 4th, 2021. And if I can get a seconder, I would like us to vote on this evening because of the time-sensitive nature of this issue.
Councillor Oche.
I'll second that.
Yes, the clerk will speak to what's required to get on the floor for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you're aware, in order for us to vote on this evening, we need a 2/3 vote for the notice to be waived. So we need to vote on that first before we can actually vote on the actual motion. So at this time, we need a mover and seconder for the notice to be waived.
Okay, Councillor Latimer and Councillor Oche.
So moved.
So second.
Any questions related to voting on tonight, Councillor Harrigan?
No, Mayor Ken, if my comments were related to the original motion,
All right.
fully support waiving this for tonight.
Okay, seeing no questions, we'll put it to vote.
One more councillor. Okay, all votes are in and motion passes by a 2/3 vote. So we can put the motion on the floor now.
Okay, Councillor Latimer, do you have any other comments?
Only that this was brought to my attention, with regard to the fact that this Arch Capital Management, the owner of Tilbury Manor, and very recent owner, by the way, they've actually purchased land in Essex on County Road 22. I was under the impression, have known for a couple of years now, that Tilbury Manor is looking for land. They were planning to rebuild, but I had expected that it would remain in Chatham-Kent. I don't want to see a loss of 75 beds. Yes, we are getting 85 more new beds through Jarlett Home, which is expected to be, I think, started over the next year to 2 years. But that would mean we'd still be down 10 current beds. So I think I really want to have our voice heard at this oral presentation on the 21st. And definitely, I think we should be submitting a written submission to encourage and maintain the importance of keeping these long-term care beds and allocating more long-term care beds.
Okay, Councillor Oche, do you have any comments?
No, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, Claire's taking care of it all. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Just to add to some of what Councillor Latimer has shared with us, many received letters who had either a family member at the Tilbury Manor Nursing Home recently about the public engagement process, which includes a meeting as the motion references, on June 21st, and also an opportunity for community members to write letters of support and to share their opinions with the ministry. So I strongly encourage anyone, particularly in the Tilbury area, or who has a family member or loved one at Tilbury Manor Nursing Home, to participate in this process, regardless of your viewpoint as to whether the location should be. I fully support Councillor Latimer in her arguments that we need to do everything we can to advocate for long-term care beds in Chatham-Kent as a important service to our community and to the partnerships taking place within our Ontario Health team here in Chatham-Kent. So recognizing that this is a process where the municipality has an opportunity to advocate to the province, I am hopeful that my councillor colleagues will see the benefit in doing this. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes.
Okay, communication items. There's 3 items being pulled, which is 2B, 2D, and 2F. Can I get Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Finn to approve or to move all the other items on the list?
So moved, Mayor Kerneth.
Seconded.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. So 2B, Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor Latimer wanted to talk about the 2021 census reminder.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I had occasion today to sit in on a Federation of Canadian Municipalities session on the importance of data collection. And in the information package, it talks about the census that's underway right now that's so important for planning for education, employment, transportation, social services, and a number of other aspects of the decision-making that council makes. So I just wanted to offer a friendly reminder to those listening in to remember to complete the census when it arrives at your home. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Latimer, anything to add?
Nope, Councillor Kirkwood White covered it all.
Perfect. So Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor Latimer, can I get you to move or to accept this report?
So moved.
So seconded.
Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Item 2D, Councillor Latimer and Councillor Crew, can I get you to second this? Oh, sorry, 2D for.
So moved.
And Councillor Crew?
I'll second it.
Okay. Yes, so Councillor Latimer, floor is yours.
Yes, 2D has to do with communication from the Ministry for Seniors Accessibility, and it's regarding the Senior of the Year Award, or the Ontario Senior Year of the Award 2021. Noting that today is the nomination submission deadline, I would like to make a motion to direct administration to complete and submit a nomination form for the 2021 Ontario Senior of the Year Award with the name and information for Carolyn Powers, our 2020 Chatham-Kent Senior of the Year Award winner.
Sorry, Councillor Crew, I should have waited till.
So I need a seconder for that.
Sorry, Councillor Latimer did it. So Councillor Crew, do you mind seconding this one?
I would absolutely love to second that.
Excellent. Any quick thoughts before we put it to vote? Okay. Anybody object to this? Hearing none, motion passes. The last one, 2F, Councillor Hall and Councillor Foss. They wanted to discuss the 2F. Councillor Hall?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is in regards to a letter from Brian McDougall, General Manager of the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority regarding regulatory proposals under the Conservation Authorities Act, Environmental Registry of Ontario. So I would move that the Council of the Municipality of Chatham-Kent supports the current membership of the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, allocating 1 member each to Adelaide Metcalf, Brooke Alvinston, Don Euphemia, Lambton Shores, Middlesex Center, Petrolia, Plimpton, Wyoming, Point Edward, Warwick, 2 members to Chatham-Kent, St. Clair, Strathroy, Caradoc, 3 members to Sarnia, 1 member to Enniskillen, which will also represent Oil Springs, and 1 member rotating between Southwest Middlesex for a 3-year term and Newbury for a 1-year term, providing a total board membership of 20.
Councillor Foss, will you second that?
Councillor Foss, are you there?
Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you to second that?
I'm happy to. Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone opposed? Hearing that, motion carries. Non-agenda business. Councillor Kirkwood White.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the council will recall that in December of 2019, you unanimously supported a small home development on Taylor Avenue, which is underway, and we're in the process of crossing some T's and dotting some I's. On May the 21st, we were notified that we were one of 10 finalists for the David Suzuki Future Ground Prize. And in order to win this prize, there will be a juried situation happen, as well as the People's Choice Award. And the People's Choice voting will begin tomorrow. And there will be some opportunity to vote starting tomorrow for the period of 15 days. And the winner will be announced on the 16th of June. So I'm encouraging all those folks that are listening in today to watch their social media and to vote for the Brickworks project for this award. Thank you very much.
Councillor Thompson.
Thanks. I have two. One that came to me kind of late, so I apologize for that. A lot of people asking about the new crosswalk lights in Blenheim. I was just wondering when the electricity was going to be hooked up to them and when they were going to be turned on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Thomas Kelly phoning. I'll have to follow up on that, but it certainly was going to be in short order. I'll follow up with you tomorrow and give you an exact date.
I appreciate that. And this one's a little bit more involved. And if there needs to be follow-up, that's great. Back on April 26th, we passed the woodlot preservation motion from Councillor Hall. And one of the points there was that everything would come back within 90 days, which is fine. I was curious, though, when the launching of the full public consultation process was going to take place. I'm getting some people asking me because they haven't seen anything in the media or on the Let's Talk Chatham-Kent portal. So I was wondering where we were at with the public consultation process on the woodlot bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bruce McCallum here, General Manager, Community Development. There's a report that'll be on the next council meeting outlining the whole consultation process, Councillor Thompson. So stay tuned for that. It'll be launched as the council agenda is released.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands, so we'll go to the first and second reading. Councillor Solomon and Councillor Pinsino.
Moved. And I'll second it, Your Worship.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Third and final reading, Councillor Foss and Councillor Thompson.
Also move.
I'll second it.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And resolution of council, Councillor C. McGregor, and we'll have Councillor Hall put the second on that one.
Thank you. And through the mayor, I would move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, June 14th, 2021, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that date to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
Councillor Hall, you second that?
Happy to second, Mayor Kenneth.
Anyone opposed? Hearing that, bring it back to get to the hockey game. Not back to the hockey game, till you get to the hockey game. All right. Have a great night, everyone.